Dr. Terry Madonna, the polling center, Franklin and Marshall. He is on our AT&T Newsmakers line. This guy is on television. He's on radio. He does podcasts, speaking engagements, and that polling center, Franklin and Marshall. And yes, at one time, he taught presidential politics. He's done it all. So before we talk presidential politics, as in President Trump, and the failure of the GOP to get the health care bill done and everything else that I have brought to the table tonight, I'm going to enjoy a refreshing Coca-Cola while you tell me who the greatest presidents were golfing, because I'm thinking the Open Championship.
Golfing. Yeah. Oh my God!
Come on.
Jack Kennedy probably had the best swing, and if he had not had the back problem, he was probably the best of the golfers. He shot in the 80s. He had this horrific back situation. The guy who played the most golf, I guess, was Eisenhower. Something like 800 rounds of golf in 8 years. And by the way, the voters couldn't have cared less. He wasn't a bad golfer. He wasn't a great golfer, but he enjoyed it, and the voters weren't upset with him at all for the golf. Occasionally, some Democrats would try to use it against him. It didn't work. Bill Clinton played about 400 rounds in 8 years. There were problems. People reported who played with him that he took mulligans, and I won't go much further with that. Maybe didn't keep the score exactly correct, but I guess when you're the president, you can take all the mulligans you want, right, Rob?
Absolutely. Listen, I know how you're passionate about golf, and I love you for that, and I wish I could do more with you, and I'm going to find a way, because you really are more than just a person who knows politics, and I respect your political knowledge, but I love talking golf with you. And I know you're going to be watching early Thursday morning before the sun comes up on the Golf Channel. But I mean, you've got Royal Birkdale, where Arnold once won, Johnny Miller, Lee Trevino, some of our all-time favorites, Tom Watson, Mark O'Meara. What do you think is going to happen? Now, I've been talking to everybody from Bob Ford and others, and we're going to be talking more tomorrow night. But Rory McIlroy, Dustin Johnson, Sergio Garcia, Jordan Spieth. I like Hideki Matsuyama. He's in there. Phil Mickelson, Ricky Fowler, Justin Rose, Tommy Fleetwood, and Matt Kuchar. Those are just some of the names going through my mind. How about you?
Yeah. No, I think you've hit on them. I think you're right. By the way, I'm going to segue to something else. Jim Furyk, who's won a U.S. Open. He's had some health problems, physical problems. Last time I looked, he was ranked in the 70s or 80s. He, of course, has won whatever the number is, 15, 16 tournaments. He was born in Chester County, but he went to school here in Lancaster County, and we belonged to the same golf club for a while, and I played a few rounds with his dad when he was growing up. I'll tell you, he is quite, and I'm using this word with full awareness of what it means. He was a perfect gentleman, and he is today. He is a wonderful guy, by the way, and his dad gave him instructions, and he has that odd swing, but it works, and I just hope he gets back into his game before he ends up on the Champions Tour.
Well, we're keeping our fingers crossed because, as you know, spent some time here in Western Pennsylvania, his family too, so we always root for Jim Furyk. Now, I want to talk to you, and I talked earlier today about this Senator Mitch McConnell. Listen, whether you like him or not, you've got to respect him for how hard he has worked, the senator from Kentucky. I think the repeal aspect, as opposed to replace later, is just to show the world, look, I tried. The Republicans have voted for it, tried, Mr. President. We just don't have enough votes. You got to scrap it, but the president is a scrapper, and he won't let it go, Dr. Madonna.
Yeah, that's correct, and he met with senators today, and, they had he had him over and chatted with him, and he put the full court press on, and he wants the vote, and apparently a vote scheduled for next week to do the repeal. There's no consensus on the replacement. There was, votes by individual senators who voted for repeal earlier who say that they won't vote for it now. There is a lot of pressure to do the repeal and then to have a time frame in which they can try to put something together, perhaps working with the Democrats. But when it's your first major legislative proposal, and you think about it, and all of the cards are on the table with this one. I mean, we even gotten to tax reform or infrastructure or some of the other things that President Trump wants to do. It's going to be hard for them to walk away from this, and obviously it has made the Affordable Care Act more popular, by the way. 55-60% of Americans now say, let's keep the Affordable Care Act, but let's improve it. And the support for the plans in Congress, first by the Republicans when they passed a plan in the House, and in the Senate with the debate going on for what the voters know about it, is only in some polls I've seen we're in the high teens. Some have gotten up into the 20s and low 30s. So what this debate has done has made the Affordable Care Act more popular.
All right, now, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, who I really have a lot of admiration for, came out swinging today. He's got 3 ideas on how to make it happen. But he also said, look, this is the third thing, and I'll go from third to first. He said, look, we got to communicate. The president tweets more than I have spoken to him, and I haven't talked to him or Vice President Michael Pence in a long time. So what do you think about him saying, Mr. President, can we at least sit down and talk to one another?
Well, I mean, the Democrats have been pretty difficult on this issue. And I'm glad that Senator Schumer said that, and I think the president and the vice president ought to sit down along with other leaders and see where they can find middle ground. And certainly the Affordable Care Act, if it's going to stay around, and who knows if it will ultimately get repealed, does need a lot of work. There are serious problems with it. But then you go on the other side, and you got the more libertarian types like Rand Paul and other conservatives in the Senate who say, no way, we want the marketplace, the capitalism to operate, and we won't want government-run health care. So overall, I think it's very important that Democrats and Republicans sit down and work it out. We've talked about this aspect of it before. Republican governors, some of whom supported the Medicaid expansion a couple of years ago, are really very concerned about that aspect of it. For example, when the expansion occurred 3 or 4 years ago, the federal government was paying 100%. As we speak now, I think it's 95% going to 90%. So there's a cost shift going on to the states even as we speak. And in that expansion that the Republicans are trying to halt, if not remove, able-bodied individuals who don't have children can collect Medicaid even though they're able-bodied, no disability, and Republicans in particular have been pushing to say if you fall into that category, you at least ought to try to find work.
Listen, at their weekly sit-down luncheon, he said, bipartisan, yeah, but I want everyone to know that anything that includes tax cuts and for wealthier Americans and cuts to Medicaid, I'm just not for that. And back to the 3 things that I talked about. Number 2, he was mentioning Virginia Senator Tim Kaine, and also from Delaware, Thomas Cape. The program would help offset larger than expected insurance claims.
Yeah, well, that's one of the big issues that we have people. If you have, and God forbid somebody comes down with some serious illness that requires literally hundreds of thousands of dollars of treatment, that can really set back the market. And how you have a risk pool and get some help so it doesn't collapse the other, hemophilia is one, so it doesn't collapse the insurance market is an important thing. And somehow that catastrophic situation has to be taken care of. And the best way to do that is to have a lot more people involved in getting the coverage so that the premiums, can help offset the fact, you have healthy people buying insurance as well as people who are, sick. Some people don't need their insurance very much. Some need it a lot. So that's a serious problem, and that has to be dealt with.
All right, one more thing on healthcare, then a quick afterthought. These all coming today from the Washington Post and reporter Ed O'Keefe. Pretty good stuff. The first thing that Mr. Schumer would like to do, cost-sharing reduction payments, which would help lower the cost of copays and deductibles for lower-income Americans. That's speaking a language that a lot of Americans definitely want to hear.
Oh, sure, because, again, it goes back to my point. You know, there are people, that there are high risk. There are people for whom insurance is going to be more burdensome in terms of its fiscal implications, and that cost has to be spread out, and that's, truly important in order to stabilize the insurance markets. And, if there isn't any doubt that this somehow, some way, Democrats and Republicans have to get together and try to work out. And maybe it's not a permanent fix, maybe it's just a fix that works for a couple of years while there's an opportunity to evaluate it. The other issue here is the fact that you don't have to buy insurance until you need it. And then if you have a real issue, you could be in a serious accident, you could require, life-saving or important surgery. So then you buy the insurance and you get it covered, but you're not participating in the years when you were healthy. You follow that?
Yeah. Listen.
And that represents another kind of problem. While we want people to be able to buy insurance when they need it, but is it just the fact that they should buy it literally at the moment or during a period when they need it, and they're not required to pay for insurance when they don't need it, which helps offset the folks, the cost of insurance for the folks who need it, meaning they're getting immediate care that requires an infusion of coverage.
Dr. Terry Madonna, Franklin Marshall Polling Center. Last thing, quickly, if you can, sir. Sign of the times. I saw this story today that members of the House can now install and utilize home security systems with campaign funds. My, how the world has changed, huh?
Yeah, I didn't see that, but the point is that, being a lawmaker right now is let's be candid, a little dangerous. Look at the rallies, look at the ridiculous things that are being said, the threats that these lawmakers get, and once they walk out of the Capitol, they're on their own. It's not like the Capitol security follows them around when they're back on the districts. I don't actually have a lot of problem with that.
I don't
think now we have to be careful that it doesn't go, beyond that and get abused. But I do think, given the tenor of the times and the climate we live in, that, and by the way, if they're using campaign funds, they're not using tax dollars. You follow me?
Absolutely.
They're getting the contributions, And there's going to be problems with implementing that, trust me. But I can't truly I can't literally write off the fact that we've got it, that the folks who make our laws, whether I agree with them or not, do need to have protection.
Yeah, and let me just say on a very serious note, the recent shooting, obviously, that took place in the nation's capital, and for those who are out there in the public sector trying to create laws and govern, when many of them have the ability to make more and do a whole lot more as far as their resume in the private sector, I think you have to salute the men and women of the House and all of those who govern at any level. Dr. Terry Madonna, always a pleasure, sir. Till we talk again, have a good night.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us tonight from Legacy Studios in East Liverpool, Ohio. Good night.